Have you ever felt the weight of trying to control every detail of your life? The exhaustion of trying to be perfect, to please everyone, and to maintain an image that isn't truly yours? We live in an age of anxiety, where the cure seems to always be more effort, more control, more willpower. But what if true freedom and inner peace came from the opposite? What if the key to your peace lay in letting go of what you cannot control, instead of clinging to it? Great ancient philosophers like the Stoics faced dilemmas very similar to our own. They left us a map, not for a perfect life, but for an authentic one. In this video, I won't give you superficial tips. I'll present you with a new way of seeing your mind, your heart, and your life. A path of profound freedom that begins when you finally understand what your own procrastination is trying to tell you. Stay with me until the end to discover how to let go of the weight of what you could never control and finally find peace in being who you truly are.
The prison of perfection. Look at your surroundings right now. Perhaps it's the silence of an empty house, the distant traffic noise, or the bright screen of your computer. Amidst this setting, a small monster inhabits your mind, whispering a standard you try to follow: perfection. From an early age, we are taught to seek the best version of ourselves, to not make mistakes, to deliver flawless work, to be a perfect friend, an ideal partner. And what happens when this standard is unattainable? Your mind's response is simple: avoid the pain. Procrastination is not an escape from work. It's an escape from the pain of not being good enough. It's a primitive defense mechanism, a response from your brain that says, if I can't do this perfectly, I won't do it at all. Procrastination is in reality a manifestation of your aversion to imperfection. Postponing complex tasks, difficult conversations, or important projects is not an act of laziness, but an act of fear. The fear that the final result won't meet your expectations, the fear of being judged, the fear of being exposed as a fraud. This fear traps you in a cycle where inaction becomes more comfortable than the possibility of failure. You convince yourself that the problem is lack of time, but deep down, the real issue is the weight of expectation, not only your own, but also the one you imagine others have of you. The work you postpone isn't the problem. The problem is the anguish of facing yourself. It is the struggle between the idealized version of who you should be and the real, imperfect, and deeply human version that exists here and now. To free yourself, we must first recognize that the pursuit of perfection is a prison that prevents us from starting. The prison of external validation. Imagine you are in an empty room with its walls painted in impersonal white. Suddenly, a voice echoes, not from outside, but from inside your head, and it asks, "What will they think?" This voice is the echo of the need for external validation, a social prison that builds the walls of our inaction. Procrastination here isn't about the fear of failure, but the fear of disappointing. You postpone the project because your boss's approval is more important than actual progress. You delay a difficult conversation with a friend because you fear rejection. With every step you don't take, you are trying to protect the image you've built of yourself in the eyes of others. Philosophy teaches us that external control is an illusion. Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher, said that we can only control our own actions and attitudes and nothing else. The need for others' validation places us in a state of constant dependence. When you procrastinate out of fear of judgment, you are surrendering your personal power to a force you cannot control. The result is anxiety and stagnation. You spend your energy imagining negative scenarios, others' reactions, and future judgments, instead of focusing on the only thing that matters: present action. The inconvenient truth is that the biggest obstacle to your freedom is not your tasks, but your own mind, which seeks approval instead of autonomy. Letting go of the fear of what others think is the first step toward finding the courage to be who you truly are in your total and glorious imperfection.
The prison of the illusion of control. Remember the last time you felt anxious? Maybe it was before a big presentation at work, or before an important conversation with someone you love. What was behind that anxiety? The belief that you could, somehow, predict and control every variable. You rehearsed every word, imagined all possible responses, and tried to prepare for every eventuality. Procrastination in this scenario is the twin sister of anxiety. You postpone action, not because you're lazy, but because reality is chaotic and unpredictable. You try to buy time to plan and control the uncontrollable. This is the prison of the illusion of control. Stoic philosophy teaches us that peace of mind doesn't come from controlling the external world, but from accepting that the only thing we can control are our own reactions and judgments. Procrastination, then, becomes an act of rebellion against this truth. You postpone writing a book because you can't control the reader's reactions. You postpone starting a project because you can't control the unforeseen events that will arise. You are so focused on having everything under control that you can't take the first step. The reality is that life is made of imperfections, surprises, and unforeseen events. The paradox is that by fighting to control what is beyond your reach, you lose control over what is in your hands, the power to act. True freedom isn't in having the map of everything, but in having the courage to start the journey without knowing the destination. Procrastination is the result of a mind that confuses planning with control. It's time to let go of the need for everything to be perfect and focus on doing what can be done now. The greatest antidote to anxiety and procrastination is not effort, but the acceptance of uncertainty.
The art of detachment, finding freedom. The lights come on. The walls of the invisible prison, built from perfection, validation, and control, begin to crumble. The air becomes lighter, not because the world around you has changed, but because your perception of it has finally transformed. This is the essence of detachment, the first and most powerful tool of liberation that philosophy offers us. It's not a synonym for indifference, for not caring about the outcome. Quite the opposite. It is the act of caring deeply about what is within your power, your intention, your effort, your dedication, while you gently let go of what is beyond your reach, the final result. Procrastination is born from the friction between what you desire and what you cannot control. You postpone because the distance between what you can do and the perfect outcome is too great. Detachment bridges this gap. It invites you to focus on the present, on the process. Ask yourself, what can I do now? The answer is always an action. It may not be the perfect action, but it is the possible action. An imperfect step is always better than perfect inaction. Detachment frees you from the need to predict the future and to cling to an idealized result. It allows you to act with courage, knowing that your value is not defined by success or failure, but by the integrity and effort you put into the path. Accepting that life is chaotic is not a weakness, but the highest form of wisdom.
The courage of imperfection, the power to start. The house is quiet. The silence is filled with the voice of an inner critic that points out every mistake you've ever made. Every failure, every imperfection becomes a justification for not starting. But the wisdom of philosophy invites us to a more compassionate and, paradoxically, more powerful view. The journey is not about eradicating imperfection, but about having the courage to accept it. Procrastination, as we have seen, is an escape from the pain that imperfection causes us. The antidote to this is not to become perfect, but rather to allow yourself to be human. The philosopher Michel de Montaigne, a master of self-acceptance, taught us that life is a process of attempts, of essays. Our failures and imperfections are not flaws to be hidden, but the very essence of who we are and how we learn. The courage to start, even knowing that the result will be imperfect, is the greatest act of self-knowledge. Procrastination keeps you in the illusory comfort zone of, I am capable, but I'm not doing it. Accepting imperfection is saying, I'm capable, but I'm also fallible, and that's okay. True freedom is born when you stop fighting against your own human nature. The philosophy of imperfection is an invitation to relief. The relief of not having to pretend, of not having to be a hero. The relief of knowing that your inner peace does not depend on a perfect outcome, but on your commitment to the process, to your own evolution. Wisdom is not having all the answers, but living well with the questions and mistakes that are part of the journey.
Philosophy in relationships, detachment and connection. The walls of the invisible prison are not limited to your relationship with yourself. They extend to others, where the need for control and validation creates the most fertile ground for anguish. Think about the last time you had a difficult conversation with a friend or partner. The procrastination of having that conversation, the hesitation to be honest and vulnerable, didn't come from the fear of confrontation, but from the fear of not being able to control the other person's reaction. What if they pull away? What if they don't understand? Stoic philosophy and Buddhist wisdom offer us a radically liberating perspective. The only thing we can control in a relationship is our own attitude. The procrastination in expressing the truth dissolves when you internalize this lesson. Detachment in relationships doesn't mean becoming cold or distant, but rather releasing control over how others perceive us. It is the act of speaking your truth, expressing your needs, and showing love without the expectation of specific return. It is the courage to be who you are, knowing that the people who love your authentic self will stay, and those who don't deserve your time. The acceptance of imperfection manifests in relationships when you allow yourself to be vulnerable. You stop procrastinating vulnerability and honesty because you understand that the cracks in your armor are not weaknesses, but the very openings through which true connection can happen. The paradox is that by letting go of the need to control, you build stronger and more authentic bonds. Procrastination in this context is the armor of the ego, the weight that prevents you from building real bridges. Let go of fear, embrace uncertainty, and build relationships based on freedom, not need.
The philosophy of movement, from being to doing. The journey began in the silence of your mind, within the invisible walls that imprisoned you. Now it is completed in a serene and powerful action. You are no longer fighting your procrastination, you are dissolving it with movement. The doing becomes an expression of your philosophical being, a practice of detachment and acceptance. With every step you take, no matter how small, you reaffirm that your peace does not depend on a perfect outcome, but on your commitment to life's imperfect journey.
The philosophy of life is a river, not a lake. It demands constant movement, even if it is slow. Procrastination is the desire to stop the river, to have the water completely still and transparent so you can see the bottom. But true wisdom is learning to navigate this river with its currents and stones. Detachment is your rudder. Acceptance is your sail. Procrastination loses its power when your mind shifts from "I need to do this perfectly" to "I will start this and see what happens." The focus changes from the end to the beginning, from the result to the process. True freedom, then, is not the absence of procrastination, but the absence of the anguish it causes. It is the ability to look at a task and say, "I don't know what the future holds, but I know I can take the first step now." Your life is a series of imperfect first steps, and that is where its beauty lies. The point is to break the cycle of inaction, embrace the imperfect journey, and find serenity in the flow of life. In the comments, share one thing you will choose to let go of starting today, be it the need for perfection, the search for validation, or the fear of the uncertain. Let's inspire one another to walk with more lightness.